the table, Mr. Clerk?
Which one?
21545?
It's the common victuals license
Yeah.
for Serena Nazaro?
Yes.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, Council Knight, the petitioner has asked to table this.
So moved.
The motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Council Bears to table this. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. 21559, petition for common victor license by Mohammed and Irina Hassanin, 247 School Street, Revere, for Bushari and Grill, 321A, Boston Avenue, Medford, Mass. We have a business certificate on file. The chairman of the licensing committee is absent tonight. Who is the vice chairman of licensing? That's correct.
There is a vice chair.
Is there anyone from the licensing committee here? 259. Who else is on the license committee?
Is the petitioner present, Mr.
Is
President?
the petitioner present?
It's you and me.
I have the old list.
Is the- I'm sorry. Good evening. How are you? Name and address of the record, please.
321 Boston Ave, Medford, Mass. 02155.
And your name is?
Irina,
Okay. And you are the owner of the restaurant, correct?
Mohammed's the owner.
Do we have any questions?
Proposed hours of operation, Mr. President.
I'm sorry?
What are the proposed hours of operation?
I'm sorry, what?
Your hours of operation?
So we're going to be open until 11, but we have applied for the special permit to be open later.
Okay, so you're in the process, so you'll be up in 7 to 11, is your current hours right now?
5 to 11.
5 to 11, okay? And
So we should expect to see an extended hours request at sometime in the future. Will there be any alcohol served on the premises, or is there an application for a license to serve any alcohol?
I'm sorry.
A license to serve any alcohol?
No alcohol.
Is there a dine-in option, or is this exclusively takeout?
Council Bears?
People will be eating in the restaurant and taking.
So it's going to be mostly takeout
Okay.
and delivery.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for the petitioners for the restaurants? Okay.
Move approval.
On the motion by Vice President Knight for approval, seconded by Councilor Bears. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Hope to come by and see you soon.
Thank you.
One last item, Mr. President. 21561, under suspension item offered by President Carviallo relative to Vernon Street and construction thereof.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You want to change or? Most of us, so I do it on the walk. Run off the walk. Thank you, Mr. President. This is a matter that's come to my attention. To a lot of the residents, and I live in that neighborhood. If anyone has driven by Vernon Street, you'll see that they're in the process of currently putting in a new sidewalks, some new curbing, and they're paving the street. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Vernon Street is kind of cut in half. It goes on the Mystic Street end versus the Allston Street end. So one half of the street has granite curbing. The other half of the street, from what I'm told, was supposed to have granite curbing, and either the contractor wasn't able to get it, so they've decided to put in a concrete curb. And anyone knows how good a concrete curb is. One plow hits it, it's pretty much done. But that's not so much the issue of the concrete curb. That the issue is you have historic homes there, and this is not the type of curbing that belongs in front of historic homes. Everyone else in the city has granite curbs. These residents deserve the same curbing as everybody else. So I would motion that we have the city engineer give us a report on why they don't have curbing. I know he said it was, if they couldn't get it. I don't know why they can't get it. Everyone else seems to have curbing. But it'll be my motion to not pave that section of Vernon Street until a decision is made whether to put granite curbs in, because these people deserve it and their house, say everyone else has it, versus the concrete curbing that is in the neighborhood now. I'm sorry, you're running the meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Carviallo. Chair recognizes Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank Councilor Carviallo for bringing this forward. If there's anything I think that we have learned from the building of the schools down at the McGlynn complex, the McGlynn and Andrews schools, is that we should never use concrete curbing. If you take a look in the winter, they get hit by the plows and they automatically just break up into a million pieces. So it should be granite. It should always be granite. We live in New England. There's salt, there's plows every winter. And it's just a fact that concrete curbing is not going to last long at all. So if we're going to do it, we should make sure we're doing it right. It should be granite curbing. I thank you for bringing this forward. And I eagerly await a response from the engineer's office. Thank you.
Mr. President, I think we have some people in the audience from the neighborhood that may want to speak.
Excellent. Chair recognizes Councilor Morell.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could also add to that request, the city engineer, I'm curious how often materials are switched out. So if materials are approved in a contract, how often are we seeing them switched out without notice, really, other than residents alerting us or us seeing it ourselves?
You offer that in the form of a motion, Councilor?
Yes. If you'll allow an amendment.
That's fine.
Amendment, easier. Chair recognizes Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank President Carviallo for bringing this issue up. My line of questioning is similar to what Councilor Morell just offered. What was the job specification on this? If it called for granite curbing, which I believe it did, and according to the contractor, they weren't able to get granite curbing, then to me, you would put in a temporary, maybe concrete curbing until you're able to get the granite. One does not take the place of the other. We were told recently that the structural integrity and the building material are similar in nature. Concrete and granite curbing are not similar in nature. And I'm not a building expert, but I don't think you need to be a building expert to figure that out, Mr. President. And if it's going to stay this way, which I hope it's not, Mr. President, what is the difference in the contractual price that went out for bid with this particular company? And did the city approve the changing of materials? That's key, because if you were a homeowner and they're going to do work on your home and decided to use something of lesser value and lesser quality, you would raise an issue, right? You'd say, as a homeowner, say, I didn't pay for that, I paid for this. And the city should do the same, Mr. President. And if it's a matter of waiting some time until granite is available, then so be it. But the job needs to be done right. As Councilor Falco mentioned, at the McGlynn Andrews School, we've had countless concerns regarding crumbling concrete curbing around that whole infrastructure. And it's been a nightmare for public safety, Mr. President. So I would just pose that question as well. If the city did approve them to move forward and gave it the A-OK, and that we as a community wait till granite is available in order to have that installed in place of the concrete curbing. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this issue? Come right up, please. Name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hi, my name is Thomas Knackle. I live at 1 Burn Street, where I've owned a home for over 40 years. And I formerly lived at 56 Burn Street, where I lived for 15 or 20 years. So I've patrolled this neighborhood for a long time. And I don't think the issue is how well the granite stands up to concrete. I think the issue is aesthetics. These are beautiful historic homes. Concrete just plain looks cheap in front of, say, the majestic McGill House or in front of Hastings Heights Park, where there is a beautiful rock retaining wall all around the park. And then they put concrete barrier wall that looks like a drainage ditch on the Mystic Street side of the park. You would never find that in the flats of Winchester. They just would not do that. They would not do that in Lexington. Let's not have that in Medford. It's not about durability. It's about aesthetics. I've lived in that neighborhood all my life. I don't want to walk down the street and see something that looks cheap. I have a beautiful home. I don't want my property values to go down because I have concrete in front of it. I love this neighborhood. I love Medford. I very much appreciate the city repaving my street. I appreciate the council taking up this issue here tonight, but I have to insist, please stop this project until we can find out if we can find some granite. That was in the original bid. Find out why they made the switch. Please try to find in your budget if we can purchase new granite, dig up this concrete, get rid of it, put in granite which is appropriate for this neighborhood. You did it for the library. Why can't we do it here? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes Councilor Carviallo.
No, Sharon Kennedy.
Yep, Chair recognizes Sharon Kennedy on Zoom.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Resident storyteller Sharon Kennedy. if I remember.
But I'm going to only tell a very true story. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
Oh, good. So I live on Brook Street, and I can tell you that the park that this very ugly concrete is now beginning to surround is used by so many people. I mean, there's people up and down Woburn and Winthrop Street and coming up from High Street, and it's the most popular place in the whole world to do dog walking, whether you live in that neighborhood or not. And there's incredible numbers of children who go sledding in the winter. And we've had musical events there, and we've even had plays there a couple of times, and we all walk there. So this is like a neighborhood treasure, this park. This park has an incredible stone tower that you'd be risking your life if you wanted to climb to the top of it. But it's a beautiful stone tower. Everything is stone around it. Two whole huge sections have 3 to 5 foot beautiful stone walls. This part didn't have anything like that, but we definitely need something that fits in with everything else that looks right with the houses. The houses are from 1900, most of them. This is definitely historic. We all love it so much, and none of us want to hold our noses while we go by this part of it that just doesn't look right at all. So I think that you all sound as if you already understand that this needs granite or it needs some beautiful stone, doesn't need concrete. The concrete won't last anyway, but it's completely out of character with the neighborhood. Thank you very much for letting me speak.
Thank you, Sharon.
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes Councilor Carviallo.
Mr. President, again, there's still a lot of work to do there. The sidewalks have to be put down all over the place. And so again, I don't think, the work can continue. They can pave they can pave the Alston Street, the Brooks part of Brook Street section of Alston, of Vernon Street, plenty of things there. And they say, there's other work to do until they get an answer. But I would make a motion that the Mystic Street side of Vernon Street not be paved until a decision is made on the granite, putting granite curbs in there.
So the motion from Mystic to Austin.
From Mystic, yes, on the Mystic Street side of Vernon Street.
Someone that has their hand up, Mr. President.
Who has the head?
Chair recognizes Christopher Leary on Zoom.
Okay, good. Thank you for having this meeting. My neighbors who were instrumental in getting it set up, I appreciate that effort. The councils that have spoken have said everything that I could say, and I'm just here to reiterate the correctness of doing this and getting granted in there. I think we can be patient and be safe at the same time and get the proper material at the right place. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Mr. Leary, if I may, can I just ask that you leave your address for the record with the clerk, please?
I sure will. Glad to.
Thank you.
He didn't give his address.
I'm sure he'll.
Yeah, I'm 40 Vernon Street.
Sorry,
40 Vernon.
40 minutes. Mr. President, Chair recognizes Council Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. I haven't spoken yet because my fellow counselor said everything that needed to be said, but I just want to add that I'm fully in support of this. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilor Carviallo.
I'm good, Mr.
You're good?
I'm good.
Excellent. Well, I think
On the motion.
Sharon Kennedy gave a good explanation of what goes on at that park. Not only kids go sledding up there, right? Might be guilty of sledding up there in the last snowstorm as well with my children. On the motion by Councilor Carviallo, as amended by Councilor Morell, asking how often they switch out design specifications in a contract. Further amended by Councilor Marks, asking for the job specifications versus the final product, and whether or not this granite will be temporary, this concrete will be temporary until granite is installed, and what's the difference in price regarding the approved work order versus the current construction materials. Then we have a motion by Councilor Carviallo to ask that the construction stop until these questions be answered and granite curbing be acquired and installed.
Not the construction stop, but
On
the
between-
Mystic
between-
Street and
Mystic
Vernon
Falls.
not be paved until the concrete, until either the concrete is removed or a decision is made. There's plenty of work there to be done on the sidewalks and other things that need to be done, so.
So you're asking that the resurfacing aspects
Yeah,
of
just
the
the
project
resurfacing
be,
aspect. Once we service,
be held
you're
until.
not gonna be able to take those curbs out.
Excellent.
Mr. President,
Councilor Marks.
Mr. President, it's important to note too, for the edification of the viewing audience, that the council's vote tonight is a recommendation to the city administration. We don't have the authority to stop a project in the community. However, the city administration does, and this is a recommendation to the city administration.
Well put, Councilor. Mr. President, the chair recognizes John Anderson on Zoom.
Thank you very much. And can you hear me?
Yes, John, sound great.
Oh, great. This is John Anderson, 102 Brook Street. And I want to thank my neighbors for bringing this to your attention. And of course, I share their sentiments. I won't repeat all their arguments. I know your time is valuable. Just one other thing that we might want to think about is what's the process for getting neighbor involvement in projects like this. I can think of some other projects that have gone on in the city where, if I lived there, I'd be very upset. And I don't know if there's any system change that could be made. I don't want to make projects go on forever. Make approval processes too cumbersome, but it seems like if neighbors had been given the chance to provide a little input on this, this wouldn't have gotten where we are now. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Motion for approval, Mr. President.
On the motion by Councilor Carviallo is amended by Councilors Morell, Councilor Marks, and Councilor Carviallo. Seconded by Councilor Marks. On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
All
Roll
those
call
opposed?
vote, Mr. President.
Mr. Clerk?
We
roll
want,
call
we
vote.
want to let the mayor know the importance of this, Mr. President.
Absolutely. Mr. Clerk, the roll call vote has been called. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Yeah, I have a second. Okay. Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight,
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morell,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli is absent. President Carviallo.
Yes.
6 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, 1 absent. The motion passes. Chair relinquishes the gavel to Councilor Carviallo.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice President. Knight.
Motion to revert, Mr. President.
Motion to revert back to regular business, seconded by Councilor Bears. All those in favor? Those opposed, motion passes. 21527, offered by Councilor Scarpelli. He's not here, so we will table that. And 21518 was also tabled. 529 was also be tabled. And that's it. So on the motion by Councilor Bears, the table, seconded by,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Marks. All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Those opposed, motion passes. 21553, offered by Vice President Knight. Be it resolved that the administration reinstate Michael Durham post haste. A, Council Marks offered an amendment requesting an update on what's going on with the original allegations. Further requested that Mr. Durham be reinstated and further called for a special meeting of the City Council for the purpose of reviewing staffing in the Office of Veteran Services with the city solicitor, a representative of the administration, and Mrs. Darlene White from the Office of Veteran Services to attend. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. This was a topic at last week's meeting. We certainly discussed it at length, resulting in this council calling for a special emergency meeting on Saturday to discuss the staffing levels in our Veteran Service Office and what's going on down there. I think we're all well aware of the circumstances and the situation that gave rise to this resolution. I don't think we need to recreate history or beat a dead horse, Mr. President. What we need to do is get Mike Durham back to work. So with that being said, I offer this resolution this evening. I ask my council colleagues to support it, to reinstate Mike Durham to the position of Veteran Service Officer.
Thank you.
That's my council colleagues to support the measure, and I move approval.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, would you like to speak? Good evening. Name and address of the record, please.
You good?
You're good.
Hello? Edward Lenahan, 64 Forest Street, United States Navy veteran. Yesterday was Monday. I went into the Veterans Office at 10 a.m. to hopefully greet the new Veterans Officer or replacement. He was not there. I was told he was at the mayor's office. So I waited around for a little bit, a while. I did an errand. I came back at approximately 11:15. I was told he was gone home for the day, all to Wilmington. Prior to that, before I left my name and my number. And I said, I have some questions, if he could give me a call. Here it is, Tuesday, no call. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Adam Knight brought this up at Saturday's meeting, I believe, with regional offices. It's a Massachusetts general law stating that the size of the city that has 58,000 people, Massachusetts general law requires you to have at least one veterans officer in the building. Okay, so we don't have any right now. She sent an email out. I don't know if you guys got it. I just got text about 15 minutes before the meeting that she requests that all veterans go to Wilmington. So what's going on? Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to see. Oh, he said Friday. He'll be back Friday. Hopefully when I come back Friday, he'll be in the office to attend to business. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Betsy
Name and address of the
Lister.
record, please.
Betsy Lister, 12 Ross Street. Thank you for having this meeting, all of you. I'm distressed at what I just heard from Ed Linehan. This is just an outrage. And is there a representative from the mayor's office here this evening?
I do not see one on the call.
Okay. Residents are extremely upset. We feel that all of our efforts, all of our words, all of our distress, the infrastructure is crumbling, the city's falling apart, and it appears that the person who is in charge of the city and oversees all has a different agenda, which doesn't involve the rest of the residents. I implore you to please reinstate Michael Durham to his rightful office as so deserved. He passed the psych exam. There's nothing wrong with that man. What's wrong is what's being done to him. So I ask that you consider him favorably for a reinstatement and that we address this properly. Thank you.
Thank you. I came in on Monday and I did have an opportunity to meet Mr. Chamalia and introduce myself and told I'd be here to any assistance and left and I didn't know how long, I don't know how long he was in the building. We did have an emergency situation this morning, which a family reached out to me because City Hall hadn't been open. And I did reach out to Mr. Somalia with the people's number to help them out. So and when I reached back out to the family, he had helped them. So, but it doesn't constitute us not having somebody in the building. So this family could have came in here. We didn't have to do this on the phone. She say it was a very traumatic thing. And like I say, though I do appreciate him helping out, I think that was something that should have been done in person because of the seriousness of the nature of what happened to the family.
Mr. President?
Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we had a meeting on Saturday and no one showed up from the mayor's office to address the issue. Here we are once again, Tuesday night, a full week later. Still no one at the podium from the administration to address the issue. An email was sent. We still have no clarification on what kind of coverage is being offered down in the Veterans Office. Someone came from Wilmington. That helps, I guess, in some sort of way. But we have no idea how many days a week, how many hours a day. You know, issues come up that might not be timely. Someone might be here in the morning. If there's no coverage, I mean, we have no idea when that office is being covered. I came in on Friday, the office was in darkness. Not even a note on the door. I mean, I know Michael Durham dealt with some pretty heavy issues down there when veterans came in and they had questions or they needed help. This issue needs to be addressed. And it needs to be addressed now. I feel that by doing this here, the administration is kicking the can down the road. There's no coverage for that office. There's no coverage for the veterans. There's no plan here. This is not a plan. There's no one here to answer any questions tonight. Once again, this needs to be addressed. Have you had any conversations with the mayor that can shed any light on the type
I
of
have
coverage
not.
we're going to be getting?
I talked to the chief of staff on Monday, along when I met the gentleman who was working here. I expressed my concerns to her, and I also sent her and the mayor an email with several questions that I thought should be answered. A couple of them were somewhat answered, but some of the ones I asked, I didn't see answered yet.
So here we are. There's still no long-term solution. We don't know when Michael's coming back. He went on his own to get an evaluation, but that wasn't good enough for the administration, but they're still not telling him when he needs to get an evaluation. They're doing the city is doing such a disservice. I should say the administration is doing such a disservice to the veterans of this community. It's absolutely unacceptable.
One information, Vice President Knight.
On that point, not only are they doing a disservice to the veterans in this community, they're doing a disservice to Mike Durham, the human being, a husband, a father, all right? Someone who served this country. They're doing a disservice to him too, leaving him hanging out there like this, using him as a political pawn because they don't like the pressure he's putting on him. All right, enough's enough with this, Mr. President. It's time he gets back to work. They're playing with a man's life.
Thank you. Council Falcon.
Thank you. And I thank Councilor Knight for his words. But I agree 100%. This needs to be dealt with. The administration is not dealing with the issue. There's no plan to move forward. There's no plans for coverage in that office. I support the resolution, but the administration needs to get on the ball and get a solution to this issue. This is absolutely unacceptable. The residents of this city, the veterans of this city deserve more than they're getting. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address of the record, please.
For these comments. This just hit me. What happens when a veteran in crisis comes here for help and is told, oh, you know what? You got to go 20 minutes up the road.
Okay, can I say something? No one said to go to Wilmington. It says if you have a problem, call Wilmington or email, but not, they didn't say to drive there.
Oh, okay. So call Wilmington. Maybe the guy's there, maybe he isn't. Do we know? We don't know where he is. I'm just saying, as the wife of a 100% service-related disabled veteran who has dealt with these crises, I need help, he needs help, and we don't need it on a phone call 20 minutes up the road. I've dealt with Michael Durham. I find him to be quite professional, to be a gentle giant, and his expertise in knowing what to do and who to contact and how to react and calm a veteran and make him feel at ease. The rapport, the whole thing, you're missing the boat, and this administration is laughing at us and using him as a political pawn, and it's just a shamble and a shame that nobody is here to represent the administration while he hangs out on a clothesline in the breeze. It's just not right. I'm sorry. And the residents are really fed up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. President?
Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I'll be brief because this resolution that's on tonight was a result of the resolution that was offered by this council unanimously last Tuesday that came under suspension. And the reason why we could not give it a formal vote, Mr. President, is the fact that it appeared on the agenda under suspension, and the open meeting rules require that the item that we vote on appear on the agenda. So we requested that it appear on tonight's agenda so we can take a formal vote for reinstatement. It's a little troubling to me, Mr. President. It's now 12 days since Mike Durham, our veterans officer, was walked out of City Hall. According to the letter that was written by the administration, there is no corrective action being taken against Mike Durham. That was part of the letter. So the city is not putting Mike Durham on corrective action. What they did state to Mike Durham is that they will handpick a physician, a psychiatrist that Mike needs to go to submit to a psychological exam. That was 12 days ago. If anyone felt that there was need for Mike Durham to submit to a psychological exam, that should have been done immediately. Immediately. The urgency of a psychological exam should take place immediately. It's 12 days now. Mike Durham went on his own to the VA hospital in Bedford. He met with a nurse for 45 minutes, and they conducted an evaluation. He met with a board-registered psychiatrist for 45 minutes that came out with a multi-page document stating that more or less, and I'm not going to quote because I don't have the report in front of me, that Mike was fit to go back to work. No underlying issues. He was fit to come back to work. Here we are 12 days later. That report was sent to the administration, and the administration still sticks by, they want to have their own person evaluate Mike. To me, Mr. President, I think we're getting into a very slippery slope when you have someone that's a whistleblower that brought up potential fraud, potential wage theft that's going on in this community, and brought it to his superiors, which he should have done. And then to have this type of action taken against this employee, to me, is not acceptable, Mr. President. It reeks of retaliation. Leaving someone out of work for almost 2 weeks now, not knowing when he's going to get this call to go see this particular doctor, is unacceptable. In particular, it's unacceptable when there's no corrective action against this particular employee. The employee has an unblemished record in this community. Check out his personnel file. It speaks volumes when you look at it. A gentleman that's gone over and above the call of duty, not just in the city, but the call of duty to this nation. So, Mr. President, I am really troubled that this is going on for so long, that we can't get back to the business at hand of running and operating our community. And we're focusing on an issue, in my opinion, that we shouldn't be focusing on. We should be looking at the wage theft and potential fraud. That's what we should be looking at. As I stated last week, in the federal government, a whistleblower gets congratulated. They get compensated in certain circumstances. In the city of Medford, they ask you to take a psychological exam. And they kick you out of work. And they tell you you can't go in a municipal building. What does he say when he has to go have a parent-teacher meeting? You can't talk to other city employees. That sounds like a corrective action to me, Mr. President. Again, I'm very disturbed about this. I would hope the city administration that talks about transparency all the time will be transparent and come up and discuss the issue with the other legislative body, the elected body in this community, and put this behind us. And that is yet to happen. So my vote tonight, Mr. President, will be the vote I took last week to respectfully ask the mayor, who's the only one that can reinstate Mike Durham in this community, to respectfully ask the mayor to reinstate Mike Durham. And that's not continue to play out personnel matters, as the mayor always refers to it. I can't discuss it, personnel matter. Can't discuss it, personnel matter. Personnel matter. The council can't meet in emergency meeting or executive session. That's a personnel matter. However, these personnel matters are finding their way into social media. I don't know how they're getting there. Some even say confidential at the top. The private investigator, Mr. President, that was hired by this administration, hand-selected, is not so independent. The private investigator that was hired, Mr. President. And the record should reflect that. And it was stated here before the council. If need be, we can pull the tapes. It was handpicked by the administration. So from now on, Mr. President, if you can handpick the judge you go before, or the investigator that's investigating you, that's a society I don't want to live in. It's a report I don't put any trust or confidence or faith in, Mr. President. This council asked, right, if we could hire our own investigator to look into it. It takes it off the mayor's table, so it doesn't look like the fix is in. The mayor would not fund that. Refused to give us one red nickel, Mr. President, to hire our own investigator. We all know it came back. The report came back, and the report found that there was no wrongdoing here at City Hall. I would have had more respect if they said, you know what, we did find a little something, and maybe this could improve or that could improve. Nothing at all, Mr. President. And it sends a message to everyone else in this community. If you know something's going wrong, don't stand up. Don't be a whistleblower. Don't put your neck on the line like Mike Durham did, because they'll go after you. They'll go after your family, and they'll make sure they hurt you. And that's what's happening right now. They're hurting a good man and his family. And I want to thank this council for standing up. I also have to go on record, Mr. President, because Saturday, when we asked the administration to appear, the administration supposedly sent an email on the Friday to members of the council stating that they could not attend. No one from the administration was going to come to our planned meeting on Saturday. All I can tell you, Mr. President, is as one member of the council, I did not receive that email. Excuse me. I did not receive that email from the administration. I've been using the same email in this community for 26 years. And the administration knows there's members of this council that opted not to use the city email and have been using their own email. And they know how to communicate. I get lots of email. I got 2 today from the administration on my correct email. But Friday, I got it on a different email that I don't use, Mr. President. And it happened to go out that this letter that was sent was now leaked on social media, stating that the council lied on Saturday. The council stated that they weren't notified that the administrations weren't showing up, that the administration wasn't showing up. And indeed, Mr. President, we didn't receive it. I can say 4 members of the 7 did not receive the email, Mr. President. That was not a lie. I haven't lied in 26 years. I'm not going to start now on my way out, Mr. President. I'm not going to start now. We did not receive that. So to play this out in the media and go back and forth is a complete disgrace. And I would hope that this administration comes to their senses, Mr. President, and resolves this issue before it goes any further. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. And I did express my displeasure to the chief of staff that a city hall email was out on social media. I don't know how it got out there, but somehow things that should be kept between us are now being put out on social media. So I wasn't too happy about that, and I did let the chief of staff understand that. So,
Mr. President.
Council Falcon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Do we ever get an answer as to if Michael's voicemail has been checked or his email's been checked? I know we asked questions about that during the Saturday session. Just want to make sure if there's any urgent issues that they get addressed.
I can't answer that, Council Falcon. I don't see that in the email that I got today. But like I say, I was fortunate. We did have an emergency situation this morning. I'm glad the person reached out to me. And I think it's something that should have been dealt with in person, and I do appreciate Mr. Chimaya handling it very professionally. He's done it today, but the family needed to be talked to in person because it was a very grave situation that happened.
Mr. President,
It wasn't something that should have been done over the telephone.
has the administration answered the question as to how Mr. Chimpaya is getting paid?
I have, according to the email I have, it does not have any, it does not say how he's getting paid.
And Mr. Durham does continue to get paid, though, it's my understanding. He's not being disciplined. He's on a paid administrative leave, so
That
he
is
is
correct.
receiving a salary. All right, thank you.
That's correct. So on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Council Falco.
Roll call vote, Mr. President.
Councilor Marks has requested a roll call be taken. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli is absent, President Carviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, none in the negative, motion passes. 2-1-554, offered by Council Marks and President Caravello. Be it resolved that longtime Lawrence Memorial Hospital internal medicine and infectious disease physician, Dr. Edward Butler, be recognized on his recent retirement and for his outstanding service to the resident of Medford for the past 40 years. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank you for co-sponsoring this resolution. Dr. Edward Butler has been a staple in this community for 4 decades. In particular, Mr. President, serving as an internal medicine doctor and infectious disease doctor at Lawrence Memorial Hospital. Dr. Butler served on the Medford Board of Health for a number of years, Mr. President, and was always available, according to the brave men and women of our police and fire department, to be available for the departments of police and fire for communicable diseases and exposure, Mr. President, which many in law enforcement and our fire department come in contact with on a daily basis. Dr. Butler was a professor of community health at Tufts University. He also served at many roles at LMH as the Director of Medical Affairs, Chief of Staff, Senior Vice President of Medical Affairs, and Chief Academic Officer of Hallmark Health Systems. He received a number of distinguished awards over the years. In 2012, he won the Ken Kaplan MD Award of the Massachusetts Infectious Disease Society. 2001, he won the Middlesex Medical Society Physician of the Year Award. Dr. Butler named 3 times to Boston Magazine Best Doctors. He was a recipient of the Hallmark Health Hero Award and was in a number of publications, which I won't mention them at all, but the New England Journal of Medicine and the American Society for Microbiology, to name a few, Mr. President. Here's a gentleman that when you met him, honestly, you would never know he was a physician. He was a down-to-earth person. He was one that cared about his community, cared about his patients, Mr. President, and he will sorely be missed. He had a tremendous office in there that assisted him. He would be the first to tell you that he didn't do this alone for 4 decades. His team consisted of Maureen Hayes, that was with him for 36 years. I think that says a lot when someone stays with you for 36 years, Mr. President. I think it speaks volumes on his character, how he treated his staff, how he treated his patients, and the type of man Dr. Butler is, Mr. President. Nancy Mahoney, 20 years. Charlene Devaney and Julianne Bottolino, who was the medical assistant for a number of years, Mr. President. I know they're having a retirement party for Dr. Butler tomorrow. I want to make sure that we get a resolution. I know, Mr. President, I think you forwarded a resolution to thank Dr. Butler.
I already have it.
Thank you, Mr. President, for all his years and commitment to the residents of this community. He did a great job in protecting us during the past 2 years of COVID. Being an infectious disease doctor, he was the resident expert in this community. And many agencies, businesses look to Dr. Butler for his advice. And that included city departments, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. President. So again, I want to thank him and let him know and his staff that they will be sorely missed. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council Marks. And, I've gotten to know Dr. Butler both as a friend and a doctor. He's helped me out on many occasions. I mean, how many doctors give you their home cell phone number and tell you, call me anytime you need something? That's Dr. Butler. I've called him on a Sunday, be in my office at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'll make sure you get seen. He's that kind of, you don't find those kind of doctors anymore. You know, now you call the doctor, I'm sick, oh, can you come in like 4 weeks? Yeah, Dr. Butler say, come in now, I'll wait for you, I'll stay for you. He was that, yes, he was that guy that, that old fashioned doctor that we're missing in our whole medical profession in general. I'm gonna be proud tomorrow. We'll be presented with a citation with Council Marks. And again, Lawrence Memorial and Hallmark, the knowledge of Dr. Butler is going to be missed.
Absolutely.
Go on the motion by Council Marks, seconded by Vice President Knight. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Two one 555, offered by Vice President Knight and President Caraviallo, be it so resolved, the Memphis City Council thank Police Officer Paul McGilvery for his 25 years of dedicated service to the residents of Medford, and be it further resolved that the Medford City Council wish him the best of luck, good fortune, and health as he continues his career in law enforcement as an officer with the Town of Wilmington Police Department. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much, and I appreciate you co-sponsoring this resolution with me. Paul McGilvery, born and raised on Marion Street in South Medford, son of Harold McGilvery Sr., a very, very, very recognized cop that served in the city of Medford on the MDC, was injured in the line of duty, and actually passed away very recently from the injuries that he sustained on that fateful night. Following in his father's footsteps, Paul became a Medford police officer some 25 years ago, Mr. President. And during that 25 years, Paul was so happy to say when I spoke to him the other day with a smile on his face that he had an unblemished record. In 25 years of service as a Medford police officer, he had a perfect record, an unblemished record. And for 25 years, he served his community. But a number of years ago, he moved up to the town of Wilmington, where he and his wife, Andrea, began to raise their wonderful family. And Paul had a great opportunity to transfer departments and to now work in the town that he lives in. So born and raised in Medford, he had the opportunity to do 25 years here in the city of Medford, protecting the residents. And now he's going to have the opportunity to do that up in Wilmington, the town that he lives in. So I wish Paul the best of luck, to his health, to his safety, and most importantly, to his happiness. To have the opportunity to be close to his family, to be in his neighborhood, and to work in his hometown is something that's great. It's something that we all relish. So I congratulate him, and I wish him the best of luck moving forward. He's a great individual, just a great person to be around. A lot of fun, a lot of knowledge, a cop's cop, as they like to say. He gets out of the car, he does his job, he does the work. He's someone that's going to be sadly missed, and they're going to have a big pair of boots to fill down there at Medford Police Department with Paul McGilvery leaving, Mr. President.
Thank you. And for myself, Paul has become a good friend over the years to me. Again, he's 25 years of dedicated service as a policeman. He was a policeman's policeman. He did his job seriously. He was compassionate and cared about people. And that's the kind of person he is. Our loss is Wilmington's gain. I'm going to miss my discussions with him, and I had a problem with my house. I was sick, and Paul was the first one to come in, help me with the fire departments. He jokes about it now, but again, he's a good person, and I say it's a shame that we're losing a good quality police officer like that, especially now when our department is down with the amount of retirements. He's someone that shouldn't have left. And I say, I wish you could have stayed, but Paul, if you're watching, good luck. Good luck on your new position in Wilmington. Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank Paul McGilvery for his 25 years of service to our community. That's a long time. He will be missed, and I wanted to wish him well in his new endeavor in Wilmington. Thank you.
So on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Council Falco.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. 2-1-556, offered by Council Bears. Be it resolved by the Memphis City Council that we congratulate Julianne Otis for her recent installation funded by Medford Arts Council. Council Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. So you know, I found out relatively recently, we had an art installation that was to go up in our parks, funded by a Medford resident, funded by the Medford Arts Council. And the idea was to have, you know, discussion provoking and thought provoking art installation around the issues of racism and white supremacy. And I was disappointed to learn that that installation had gone up. Again, this was funded with city money, approved by our Parks Commission on multiple occasions. It was installed at a local city park, and within a few days, it had been torn down. And then it was, I think, crowdfunded again to find the money to print it, install it, put it up again. And once again, it was torn down. And I think, you know, we should thank the artist, a Medford resident here, for the effort to go through this. But I also think it's important that we hear from her and you know, what went into this, and maybe have some discussions about why this happened multiple times in our community. And you know, the idea was to have discussions. I think the art installations weren't up long enough for us to have those discussions. So maybe we can have some of them here today. And I know that we do have the artist here to speak on this matter if we want to hear from her as well. Thank you.
Thank you. On the motion by Council Bears, seconded by Council Vice President Day. Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
Julianne Otis, 35 Brookings. Thank you so much to the president and the council for this recognition. I was funded by the city of Medford through the Medford Arts Council to install my artwork, Textbook Behavior, in multiple parks in the city for 10 weeks. This visual artwork combines 1950s textbook illustrations with humorous and earnest captions, as well as poetry, I'm a poet, that highlights the impact of racial inequity. The council, the Medford Arts Council, commissioned this work as a way to creatively and compassionately confront racism in Medford. And the artwork used poetic and provocative wordplay to challenge racist narratives and paint portraits of healing. I proposed Textbook Behavior to the Arts Council because I have seen a deep divide continuing in Medford and wanted to invite a dialogue about systemic racism in our city. Luckily, this is one of the funding priorities of the Medford Arts Council, which is a rarity in our current city government. I installed the artwork in 3 parks in Medford: Morrison Park, Duggar Park, and Tufts Park. It subsequently was vandalized and ripped down. Medford residents came together and fundraised so that the artwork could be reprinted and reinstalled. The second time I installed it in Morrison Park, it was ripped down within 45 minutes. Bear in mind, my contact information and the website for the project were clearly invisible on every single pieces of this art. At this point, I called Medford Police Department, and began chatting with the neighbors about the work and about the vandalism. Shortly thereafter, Officer Callanan and very wisely had us leave the neighborhood before continuing our conversation. I want to pause here and say that his handling of this case has been exceptional, and he displayed amazing sensitivity in understanding what the neighborhood would need, what the neighbors who lived in that area needed, and what would best support the city in this conversation. Officer Callanan indicated that he knew exactly who had vandalized and stolen the work, and I'm very grateful for his handling of the case, which will be going to court soon. It's deeply concerning to me that artwork that provokes dialogue about dismantling racism in our community is met with defacement and theft instead of open dialogue. It's even more concerning to me that we can see these same type of systems playing out in city government. When the second incident occurred, one of the neighbors I spoke to in Morrison Park contacted someone at the Parks Commission who denied that I had permission to install this artwork, despite the fact that I had presented the project personally at 2 Parks Commission meetings. These presentations included a description of the project already funded by the city, a sample of the artwork, the website to see all the works that had been commissioned, and my contact information. In my second meeting with the Parks Commission, I submitted the specific locations where the work would be installed, and permission was approved, and again invited everyone to come participate with the work. After the second incident of vandalism and theft, the Parks Commission asked me to not reinstall the work, but to attend another meeting so that they could approve the artwork. They also said that there had been complaints about the artwork, but declined to tell me who or to put me in touch with anyone to be able to continue dialogue with those members of the community. Logistically, all of this communication was beside the point, since I'm a contractor who had already been commissioned and paid $6,000 by the city, and as far as I was concerned, the work was complete, save for the online public event that I'm hosting at the end of October. This event is about having compassion in conversations about racism. The only reason I reinstalled the first time is because Medford came together to fund the reinstallation. After it was ripped down a second time, I moved on and began preparing for its next contracted installation in the next city where I'm presenting. As a contractor, the communication was irrelevant. The work was done. But as a Medford citizen, I was disgusted. The Parks Commission wanted to act as censors and arbiters of anti-racism artwork, which is disturbing on many levels. It was clearly the
Point
anti-racism
of
nature.
information, Mr. President, if
Point
I
of
could,
information, Councilor Marks.
just so I understand, because when you say the artwork, you're saying they originally approved and went on a website and saw all your artwork and then approved the artwork as well as giving you approval to use the parks?
Yes, so I'll answer that question and another one, which is the first time I came on and presented the artwork, I presented my past work. I presented a full description, which is the same as what I just described for you. I presented a sample from the commissioned works. I presented a website where they could see all 8 of the works that were going to be put in that had already been approved by the city. And then I also provided my contact information. Before I presented, there was another artist who was told not to present her artwork because they did not have time to see the artwork and it wasn't their job to approve the artwork.
When you say,
They said that to
when
her
you say approved by the
before I
city, when you
presented.
say approved by the city, I just want to make
Yes.
sure we're talking, you're saying by the park board or some other entity?
The Medford Arts Council commissioned and selected my work and
Right.
paid me $6,000. The
Right,
Medford
but
Arts
they can't
Council,
approve to put something up in a public park. That has to be done by the Parks Commission.
right, the Parks Commission, the
I
Parks.
just want to make sure we're on the same page. So you're saying the Park Commission was the one that approved whatever eight?
They approved it being accessible. They approved the locations. They approved the number of works, the size of the work, the materials it was printed upon, the length of duration for which it would be in there,
So you're saying that was all in a vote
making
taken
sure
by
it
the
was,
Parks?
yes, the
Okay.
Parks Commission.
When did that vote happen, just so we have that?
So I met with them in March 2021 and May 2021, and I also corresponded with them in April of 2021. But they asked me to come back to that third meeting to present about the specific locations at that May
When was
meeting.
the actual vote, if you could? Just, I know you just.
May
mentioned-
2021.
May 2021. And that encompassed the approval to be in the parks. And
For
the
this
approval.
specific project.
Right.
Yes,
So that was May 2021.
that was May 2021.
Do you have a date?
No, I could provide it.
Okay. I think they meet, what do they meet? First Monday? Okay, so we could find out.
Kevin Bailey surely would have the Zoom meeting recording.
Thank you.
Sure. So in my first meeting with the commission, another artist on the agenda before me was told not to show a presentation of her work and just give a summary since there was very little time available. So I do want to also mention, though, that there are some members of the Parks Department who reached out to me after finding out about that email that was sent to me, and they let me know that they were not consulted on that action. So that email to me asking me to come back in and have the artwork reviewed, that was not a communication that came from the entire Parks Commission. This person who reached out to me and said that they were not informed about this email sent to me, said that they would have dissented if it had been brought to a vote, that they vehemently opposed the request to attempt to censure the artwork, and that, and she said that I had made very clear the nature of the content of the project. So you can see this in the Zoom recordings, both March 2021 and May 2021, because I did the entire presentation at both of those meetings and invited a conversation about the content at both of those meetings. In addition, I want to mention that the mayor's response was milquetoast at best. She did not condemn the vandalism or theft, nor did she make any statements that her administration would support anti-racism public programs. Her response to the first incident of vandalism was to help me report it to the police chief, which I found out later from Officer Calman was never recorded in a police report. And her response to the second incident of vandalism was an email that read, "Julianne, I will look into this, Brianna." That's it. That's the entirety of the communication that I received from the mayor's office on this work. In closing, I'll try to be brief. Two more things. This artwork was commissioned by the city to promote dialogue about systemic racism, and I'm glad that I at least was able to talk with a few neighbors who had never had conversations before about white privilege and white fragility. Those are the conversations that are the most important to have, and they take skill, they take training, they take funding, they take staff hours, and they take really well-designed programming. Compassionate and creative conversations that don't put people on the defensive and that invite them to talk about race in a safe way are desperately needed in our town. And I want to know what the city council and what the current administration is doing to make that happen. I also want to know what specific resources our mayoral candidates will put towards anti-racism public programs that will dismantle white supremacy and racial inequity. This is not just about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. I'm talking about hiring consultants who are well-trained in community anti-racism work to offer citywide programs that address the deep divide that I see out there every day. I want the dialogue about race, white privilege, white fragility to be a safe one and even an inviting one. And this radio silence on race and this non-specific commitment to social justice roadmap has run out of ramp, in my opinion. And it's time to put dollars and hours and heart commitment into this kind of programming. So thank you very much to the city, to the Medford Arts Council for commissioning me to do this work. And I thank the City Council very much for your time and for your response to these requests. I also brought examples of the work, and I'm wondering if you might have additional examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Julianne.
Thank you.
Questions of Julianne? Council Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Julianne, thank you so much for being here, for taking the time to explain the process, for presenting this so many times. I was able to see some of the artwork. It was still up during Open Studios. So I really appreciate your work and your efforts as a resident and an artist to foster these conversations in a way that is passive and invites people to engage in them. And perhaps some people may feel uncomfortable, but this invites conversation in a different way, which, was your intention. I don't want to talk too long on this because Councilor Bears at the point, this is exactly as you said, this is to foster conversation. And if we can't even get to that point, clearly there's a lot more work we have to do. It's always been apparent, there's a lot of work we have to do. There's a lot of work every city has to do. There's a lot of investment needed in this area, but the consistent vandalism and the hard stop of these potential conversations is very concerning. And I'd love to see more action by the administration and by the city council in our power to foster this kind of work. And again, I thank you as a resident and an artist for taking this upon yourself and going through the channels to bring this forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Julian, thank you very much for your artwork. I'm absolutely horrified that this was not only pulled down once, but twice. Just completely unacceptable. I feel like I'm using that word a lot tonight, but it's completely unacceptable that was torn down. And it shows you that there is still a long way we need to go as a community. I mean, you talked about, promoting dialogue and conversation, and that's what it's all about. Is it an easy conversation? No, but we need to have that conversation, and that artwork, I think, is part of that. It's unfortunate that it was pulled down. If I may ask you, and I was trying to take your notes while you were speaking, so I apologize if I missed this piece. It was taken down twice, and the third time, were you told not to put it up, or?
Sure. So as a contractor, I was paid for this work to be installed once. It was vandalized and ripped down from Morrison Park.
Yep.
And then it was vandalized, ripped down, but not stolen at Duggar Park. The installation at Tufts Park remained intact the entire 10 weeks. So after the first incident of vandalism and theft, I thought, well, okay, I'll crowdsource and crowdfund and see if we can get enough Medford residents. And luckily we got enough zhuzh going on that we got enough to be able to pay me for my time as an artist to install and also to be able to reprint the artworks. These are giant vinyl banners, like 6-foot giant vinyl banners. And reinstalled them in Duggar Park and in Morrison Park. I had printed out little notices to hand out to all the neighbors in both of those areas, just to clarify, here's my phone number, and also here's the number of Medford Police Department in case you have any information about the first theft and vandalism. I forgot them at home, so I went home, got them, came back. It was 45 minutes later, and somebody had taken box cutters and ripped them down. So we're not talking like, So Officer Calnan indicated that he knew the individual who did this. There were 3 to 4 individuals total who actually took box cutters and did this, but that's a court matter that is going to court. He's been outstanding. Again, I can't say enough about the sensitivity that he displayed and really understanding how best to go about this. But after the second time, it was ripped down and, and stolen and vandalized. I was done. I was already paid as a contractor. I'm complete. I did 1 round of crowdfunding because I do care, but I didn't really want to do it a second time. And I was already prepping for the artwork to be done in the next city over anyway. So I just, I got a lot of heart, but not that much heart.
It's just listening to the story. It's horrifying. Because here you are trying to do a good thing. You went through the process of getting it approved. It sounds like the park commission knew completely what they were approving. So you went through that process, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's really, I feel like if the administration was truly committed to this, your artwork would have received protection, especially not once, but having it pulled out twice. But you should have, as an artist as well, received some sort of support from I think the administration and from the community. I'm glad to hear you had a pleasant experience with the police department, but it sounds also like you said there wasn't a police report filed.
Not the first one,
Okay.
not the first one. There's a lot of layers here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it sounds like there's a
Right.
complex story.
There's a lot of layers here. We're not going to deconstruct all of them tonight, but I hope that in my sharing of the story of the creation, installation, vandalism, and recreation of the work, I can at least point to the importance that we have this conversation in the city now. That this be funded in a real way, that staff hours go to this in a real way. We're not going to tease apart, because we're going to constantly have this, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, or it was this department's fault, or it was that department's fault, or it was the mayor's fault. Like, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in actually creating community-wide programming that reaches all Medford residents, no matter what generation they are, no matter where they came from, if they were born here, if they weren't born
Point of
here.
information, Mr. President.
One information, Councilor Mons.
When you mention community-wide programming, how is this publicized? How is it advertised? You may be aware, you're the contractor, the park board may be aware, the mayor's office may be aware, but how is this advertised? Because you said the thing was partly to bring up conversations and dialogue. So I'm just wondering, do these just appear in a park? And how are you going to gather dialogue and conversation when no one knows what's going on? Something just apparently appears and people reacted. I mean, so I think part of it, we have to realize maybe, some of the blame pie was, how is this sent out to the community?
I couldn't agree more.
To notify, right?
I couldn't agree more. Where was the conversation and statement about this artwork coming in that invited dialogue amongst all city
So why
residents?
wasn't that part of this grant? Why wasn't this, right? Why wasn't this part of the total picture? And I think what we see right now is, you're right, there's a lot of division in this community. And to me, one way to head that off is to have open dialogue. And, it would have been nice maybe to promote this like every other event.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to an event, Oktoberfest, and the mayor's been promoting that up and down. It would have been nice to have some promotion. Maybe you would have got people out saying, hey, geez, what is this? What does this stand for? Why is this? Why? Who knows? But maybe we would have had that. And I don't think we allowed that to take place. And
I would love to have had this event and this art installation promoted in the same way as other festivals and arts events in our community. That would have been lovely.
Mr.
Right.
President, if I may. if you good, Counselor Marks?
I'm good. I don't think, how it was publicized and the way it transpired, I don't think was enough notification really to alert residents that, first of all, there's something going on, right? Love to go down and check it out. I didn't know about it until I heard, someone else saying it was ripped down. I would have loved to went by. I'm very
Yeah,
active with
that's what I
the
found out
Medford
about
Arts
it.
Council, right? So first of all, I would have loved to hear it. And I think secondly, I think it would have head off maybe some of this supposed intention or whatever existed, it would have headed it off. So I just think that's the way I would have handled it. But
Well, and that's exactly the question I was gonna have is why wasn't this put out there? We get a lot of press releases, we have a city newsletter, we have things coming out from different departments, pretty much all the time. We have social media, this wasn't advertised. And I think two things here really speak to me. One, the fact that it initially wasn't even really talked about initially, it wasn't put out. It's a city-funded initiative, comes from the Arts Council, going into our parks, and it's addressing what this council has said is a major priority, what the city administration has said is a major priority, and it got no play, no advertisement. I didn't know about it. If people on this council didn't know about it, and we represent the city, we're in City Hall more than most other folks, then most people didn't know about it. And then the second piece is, we didn't hear about what happened to the installation either, right? There was no statement, there was no discussion, there was a few sentences of an email. And, that's the question. I think when you look at both of those, it reads to me as part of the larger problem, which is we say we want to do something, we say we want to talk about it, but and I think you made this point actually about a year and a half ago, which is we can talk about it, but what are we doing, right? And the doing piece was never done. And so, I have another resolution on here tonight. We're going to talk about it in a minute, which is to ask, what have we been doing? But I think what we're hearing here tonight, and what we probably knew already, is we're clearly not doing enough. And in some cases, we're not doing anything at all. And that is a shame, to say the very least, but I think it also means we're not going to move forward. So I'm just glad that this is out there. I'm glad that we're having a discussion tonight. I hope that other folks are hearing this as well. And I hope, to be honest, that we hear more about this in the days and weeks to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Perez. Councilor Morell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think Councilor Marks and Councilor Bears bring up a really good point in that the intention of this art was to drive conversation that didn't happen in the way envisioned because of the vandalism, but there was multiple other opportunities. There was a missed opportunity as far as promoting. There was a missed opportunity as far as sharing what happened. These are opportunities for conversation and for dialogue and to do better. And if it weren't for a receptive council, how would we hear about this? So I think Councilor Bears brings up a really good point. Councilor Marks brings up a really good point. And, we're having this conversation now, but the conversation was intended to be had by, the public, by the residents. We get the pulpit every Tuesday. We want that opportunity to have more people have this type of dialogue, and that was missed on multiple accounts. Thank you.
Julian, was the ad torn down at both parks?
The first incident happened in June. It was torn down and stolen from Morrison Park, all three pieces there. And then the two pieces in Duggar Park were torn down but left there. So then I cut those off and took them. Once they're torn and the grommets are toast, you have to reorder. So that was the first incident. And then the second incident, the ones in Duggar Park stayed up. The ones that had originally been installed in Tufts Park were continuing up. And the ones in Morrison Park were torn down with box cutters within half an hour.
You said the police arrested somebody for this?
Yes, they did.
Were they juveniles or were they adults?
I do not know.
Were they Medford residents?
I believe so.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for what's happened to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. There. Where we been, Ms. Clerk? Meredith, where is Meredith?
Hello.
Oh, there you are, okay. Meredith, name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Meredith McKelvey, 105 Andrews Street. I'm one of the co-chairs from the Medford Arts Council. So I just wanted to speak a little bit to what Councilor Marks was saying about the advertising on our end. I personally wasn't on the council when we advertised for textbook behavior, but I have to assume that we definitely did through our Facebook page as well as our Instagram page. And we also reposted Julianne's Instagram stories to keep people posted about what had gone on with the tearing down of the posters. So I think we could have maybe done a better job about keeping people in the loop and advertising for it initially, but I just want to remind people that we are a volunteer council and most of us do have full-time jobs, but we try to do the best we can. And so thank you for that feedback. It's noted. But I also wanted to say that I think what happened not once, but only twice to her important artwork has made a very clear statement and reflects the mindset of some of the members of this community. And it's really sad and disheartening. Julianne spoke about the divide in Medford, and this is obviously a massive issue.
We don't know who tore them down, Mr. President. So I'm not sure it's fair to say members of this community. So I would just caution the speaker that we don't know who tore them down.
Sure.
Mr. President. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay, that's fair. But anyway, it's disheartening no matter who tore it down. And this is obviously an issue for not just Medford, but the entire United States. And, you know, this type of artwork is very important to spark these conversations, like Julianne was saying. And I think Councillor Bears is about to speak more about some programming, but I think anything the city can do to help promote anti-racism education and programming is incredibly imperative and hopefully can be implemented soon. So I just wanted to thank Julianne for her powerful artwork, and I'm sad that this happened, but it has presented a good opportunity for us to discuss it. So thank you, councilors, for your time.
Thank you, Meredith. Councilor Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to say to Meredith, by the way, you know, I think the Arts Council, we know you're a volunteer body, you're doing what you can, you have the followers that you have. It would be, I think when we were talking about outreach, it's how is the city boosting that? How are we using the resources of the city to get that out there? So I know it maybe came off a little bit as on the Arts Council, we know that you do amazing work, and you know, the support for that, I think, would have been really additive in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address of the record, sir.
William Navarre, 108 Medford Street, apartment 1B. I'm rather alarmed to learn that, you know, somebody inside or outside of our community, but coming into our community, decided to sort of censor themselves this important artwork. And it's a little frustrating because I wasn't really aware of this artwork before, so it took me a while to find it on the computer. And maybe some people at home are also, you know, still unable to like really know what this artwork is. I was able to find one myself. It's a drawing sort of in the style of an old school comic strip or political cartoon. And then shows the family moving in, and it says, "And that's why everyone in our neighborhood looks like us." You know? And so that's one of the ones I found on the computer. I know there are more. And I know there's a lot that the council can't do, but one thing they could do, I think, is to look at some of the ones we have prints of here in the chamber and tell the constituents or hold them up to the camera, the viewers at home, to see the artwork that's been censored and shouldn't have been, and that was supposed to spark a dialogue. And I think that'd be a good opportunity if somebody wants to do that. And I shared one that I found myself. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just provide that now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I can just provide that now. JulieAnnOtis.com, which is JulieAnnOtis/textbook behavior. So JulieAnnOtis.com/textbook behavior. Or if my SEO is up, then you could just Google my name and the name of the installation.
Thank
Thanks.
you. So on the motion by Councilor Bears, seconded by.
Second.
Do you want to speak? I think, do you want to speak? Come on.
Oh, sorry. Good evening. Name and address of the record, please.
Sure. I'm Jen Lewis, 20 Russell Street.
I'm a resident, longtime resident, mom, artist, and educator. I recently, a year ago now, finished grad school and becoming an educator. I'm now teaching at the college level. And through some of that training, I learned a lot about the experiences of people who weren't like me. I learned a lot about how to facilitate conversations about that. I think a lot of our residents, a lot of people have not had that education. Today, thankfully, I'm glad to hear my kids in the public schools are getting a little bit more history of people who don't look like us, who are not white, who are BIPOC and other. And I want to make sure that all of our residents, everyone gets an opportunity to learn a little bit more about people's experiences that don't look like them. It gives us an opportunity to really put ourselves in other people's shoes. I am so grateful that Julie created this artwork to start some conversation in Medford, but it shouldn't just be the job of the artists. This should be, we declared racism as a public health issue in Medford. It's a health issue. It's an equality issue. It impacts so many different areas of everyone's life. We're all stronger when we're working together. And I really believe that many of the white members of our community would benefit from being able to have some compassionate, open dialogue about racism and about white supremacy and how our current policies today have created some of those, our policies over time have created so many systems of injustice that exist today. So having more of these opportunities throughout Medford, not just through the arts, although the arts are always a powerful way to facilitate conversations, but not just in our schools, but with adults, with all of our community members, with trained facilitators who are not going to alienate everyone, but actually engage people in conversation. It takes time, it takes money, it takes effort. Most of all, it takes commitment. And that's not a commitment I'm seeing from the city overall. I've heard some lip service all around, and I've heard an awful lot of division. And I'd really like to hear a lot more plans to move forward and really bring this work to the community, to work with the members of our community to understand each other better. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with that, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could,
Council Marks.
because when we're talking about division, I think that's an important topic. And I also think it's important, Mr. President, when we say create dialogue, it's not helpful when people create anonymous websites listing the 10 most racist people in Medford. That's not helpful either, Mr. President. So I believe strongly that, you know, if we want to have dialogue and move together as one, we can't have this back and forth, Mr. President. And I would hope the same attention to this website, Mr. President, that's currently still out there that names, I believe it's over 10 Medford residents as the top racist in the city, some pretty prominent business owners and activists and you know, people in this community. I think that equally needs to be brought up as well, Mr. President, because in my opinion, that is unacceptable as well. And that deserves the very same nature, Mr. President, of attention by the authorities as well. And I'm under the impression that is being looked at, Mr. President. But I want to make sure, you know, we put all the cards on the table. And that to me is healthy. That's dialogue, that's discussion. And it can't be one-way discussion. It has to be throughout the entire community, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm told on the police thing, what you mentioned, that the chief and the detective, I think they've know who's been paying for the site and who put the site up, and it's currently with the district attorney's office. So I think that'll be coming to an end soon, but they have located who owns the site and who's paying for it, from what I've been told. So again, on the motion by Councilor Bear, seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Excuse me. 21557, offered by Councilor Bears. Be it resolved by the Medford City Council that the city administration report to the council on anti-racism efforts and trainings conducted under the mayor's social justice roadmap. Be it further resolved that the city administration provide an update on future plans for funding and anti-racism programs and public programming to involve all Medford residents in dismantling systems and structures that perpetuate white supremacy and racial inequality. Council Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. I did put this resolution on the agenda to further the conversation we had and also to, do what we can as a council. I think, as we know, we've had a lot of discussions about the power of the mayor and the administration recently. And it's our job to ask what's going on, what's happening, are the commitments that are being made being followed. So that's the intent of this resolution. And I think just if I may for a moment, one piece of this is conversations and dialogue. And I think that's important. It's important for bringing people together. It's important for changing hearts and minds. And it's important for meeting across differences. And I think there's a lot of value there. And I do want to know what the administration's doing on that front. I think the other piece of this is policy and change. What are we doing to review city policies to make sure that they don't have disparate impact? What are we doing to review city ordinances and our city budget to see that our funding priorities are meeting the stated verbal priorities that we're putting out there? What are we doing when it comes to zoning and housing production and environmental justice and climate change to address racial inequities that cross all of those intersections? So, a piece of this is dialogue and conversation that I think is very, very important. And I think the other piece is the work of government. What are our policies? How are they being reviewed? And I think some of it as well, we've had some meetings as a council in subcommittee. We've had discussions in full council. The mayor's administration facilitated some conversations last year. And that was, a good starting point, I think. But again, it was volunteers. It was, people scrambling to get people to facilitate, breakout rooms. It wasn't like we were putting together a full plan and saying, here's how we're going to fund it. This is the purpose that it's going to seek. So, I think concreteness is important. I think understanding the outcomes we're trying to achieve is important. And I especially think that paired with good conversation and dialogue must be the real work of looking into, and I think we all know this as well on many fronts. We have many old policies and old forms and old ways that we do things. Maybe we need to take a look at some of those. I'm not going to lay out any specifics. I want to hear what's happening. I want the administration to report back on what they've been doing. And I just hope that the answer isn't insufficient. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. But we need to know what the administration is doing on policy. And then I also hope that we as a council will continue to raise these efforts. And to be honest, I think we have brought this up when it comes to zoning recodification. We've had some good discussions. When it comes to the marijuana zoning ordinance, we had some good discussions and put some strong equity provisions in there. We have, made some declarations as well. Is it enough? I think maybe we need to do more, but we've taken some steps. I want to hear what the administration steps are. And I'm very hopeful that in the next round of budget discussions, we will have that more clearly outlined in both staffing and programming. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Morell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Bears for bringing this forward. I brought forward a similar resolution a number of months ago, asking similar questions about the social justice roadmap. As I pointed out then, and I'd like to point out again, this roadmap was essentially a retrospective. I appreciate the work that has been done and it was outlined, but there was no concrete plans for moving forward. And I think similar to the conversation we were just having, there's a missed opportunity for communication with our community. I was speaking with a resident recently who asked about the declaration from both the mayor and the council declaring systemic racism public health crisis. And they said, what does that do? And as it was explained to us by the administration, having that declaration can unlock certain grant funding to address social determinants of health. And we haven't had an update on that since. I'm sure some of the work is going on, but it feels like a real missed opportunity to communicate to our community what this declaration means, what happens as a result of it, what work is going on. And despairingly, I had a conversation with a resident on Sunday that shared, their father-in-law had a racial slur shouted at them in Medford Square. So our residents are dealing with this they're facing these issues, and the least we can get is an update and talk about where we go from here, because promises have been made, declarations have been made, and the residents and this council deserve an update about where we go from here. What work is being done? How is this being funded? Who's being engaged around this? So I thank Councilor Bears for bringing this forward and keeping this top of mind, and hopefully getting those answers soon. Thank you.
Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Beers as well, and Councilor Morel for words as well on this topic. I did, I've read through this plan, and it actually says this page will be updated regularly as we welcome community feedback and questions. But when I've gone through, I haven't noticed any updates. And I think it's important that we do receive an update. This needs to be a priority. It's obvious that this needs to be a priority throughout our community. And one of the questions I have is, who owns this? Who owns this plan? Is it the mayor's plan? Is it diversity and inclusion? Who owns this? Someone needs to own this at City Hall. Someone needs to drive this. And from what I can tell, when I read through this, it doesn't look like there's one particular person that owns this. Someone needs to own this plan. Someone needs to move this forward. Someone needs to drive the dialogue, and it needs to be dialogue. And I think that's lacking. I know we've had a number of community forums, not nearly enough. I think we had a handful over the past 12 months. This came out, I believe, a year ago, this coming Thursday. I think there's only been a handful of community forums. If we want to be serious about this, money's going to have to go into it. Dialogue needs to happen. It needs to happen sooner than later. I thank Councilor Beers for bringing this up tonight. We need an update. The community needs an update. And, it's a roadmap, but we need to do better. The administration needs to do better on this, or else it's a road to nowhere. So we really need to make sure that this is being discussed on a regular basis and that there is programming built around this on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Council Marks.
I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank Councilor Beers for putting this on. We voted a while back, I think it's been over a year now, to declare racism a public health crisis in the city. And I must say, Mr. President, in this past year, I haven't heard from the diversity director at all regarding racism as a public health crisis. I haven't heard from our Human Rights Commission at all. I know they meet. I know they discuss these issues. They haven't presented before the council. They haven't raised any concerns to this council, Mr. President. And secondly, as Councilor Falco mentioned, it was this council that stood up not too long ago when the mayor said, you know what, we're going to take our diversity director, we're going to make the diversity director the human resource director as well. So you had a full-time diversity director. Now we're going to combine the positions for one person to take on both roles. And we're also going to ask that diversity director and human resource officer in the community, chief people officer, now, Mr. President, to also look at all the parking hearing violations in the community and be the arbitrator of the parking violations. This person would have 3 jobs. And then you wonder why when Councilor Falco said, who's leading this? Who's leading the charge? You know who's leading it? Nobody, Mr. President. Because they're taking positions and they're watering them down. And that's why this council stood up and said the diversity director is far too important of a position to combine the roles and then give other ad hoc responsibilities. Because we knew, the members of the council knew, if you did that, you'd water down the position. And it's far too important of an issue, Mr. President, to water down the issue. And that's what's happening right now. And that's why we don't have any correspondence. That's why there's no follow-up. Yeah, the buck stops with the mayor, but there's also others in this community, Mr. President. A commission on human rights, a diversity director, and others, Mr. President, that should be equally as involved, pushing the envelope. When we talk about having dialogue in the parks and so forth, that's what should be happening by the director of diversity, which I haven't heard from in over a year regarding any diversity issues. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't heard anything, Mr. President. And we haven't had any dialogue with the Human Rights Commission. And I know they meet. I've watched their meetings. I know they're discussing these issues. But guess what? It's in a vacuum. And that's where it stays. So to have meaningful dialogue, it's great to have these roadmaps and so forth, and you have these, these roundtable discussions, and then after that, it kind of dies off, it peters off. Let's face it, after that, there's no centralized focus on this. And if we're going to get serious, that's what we need, Mr. President. We don't need to water down positions and make one person the chief of everything, and meanwhile, nothing gets done because they're the chief of everything. And that's what's happening. It's exactly what's happening. And I'm glad my colleagues stood up and fought not to combine those positions, Mr. President. It was a tough vote because they were trying to sell it. Geez, look at this. It's excellent to have the head of diversity as the director of human resources. It may be a good idea, Mr. President, but we all knew one person that was far too big of a role for one person in this community. And I'm glad we took the stance, to be quite frank with you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Good evening. Name and address on the record, please.
Jen Lewis, 20 Russell Street. In response to Councilor Falco's question about whose job is this and whose responsibility, I just need to put out there that it's all of our responsibility. I understand, John. Yep. I just want to say that it's not, and it's most especially not the responsibility of the people of color in our community to inform us about what's going on. If you look around, as far as I can tell, there's not a person of color in this room, and there are very few people of color in City Hall. It's the white people that have primarily power in Medford, and it's us that need to make a difference and need to take the step up and make sure that we are addressing these issues within the white community of Medford. As well, I'd be very interested to hear from the diversity director to hear if he feels that this, what he thinks is needed to enhance his department. And I think actually that it is pretty common these days and recommended by diversity directors that that sort of combination of human resources and diversity actually is recommended by a lot of consultants these days in the work that I've done with my nonprofit.
One person doing the job?
It is recommended that it's always fully staffed. However, if you look
Fully
around
staffed.
City Hall,
That's a big difference. now.
there's a lot of places not staffed in City Hall.
Right, but that's.
We've been
but
in a
that's big
pandemic,
difference.
things change.
So that's a big difference, Jen, having it fully staffed and having one role combined, which we know is going to limit that person in that capacity. That goes without saying.
I believe that there actually is still an opening in that department for that person to not have to do all of the above. That doesn't mean we can find the right person
Thanks to this
immediately.
council. Thanks to this council. You're absolutely right.
Mr. President.
If I may,
Let's get our facts straight. Let's get our facts straight.
Quick point of information.
Yeah, if I may, just quickly, I just wanted to say, Jen, I completely agree. Everyone needs to own this, but I'm just saying, everybody's part of this, yes.
Yeah.
But one person at City Hall needs to own this document. This needs to be a priority. We're a city of, I always go back to the metrics and about making sure that these departments are separate, because I go back to the metrics, 59,000 residents, 4,000 kids in the Medford Public Schools, 1,000 municipal employees. Diversity, inclusion, and equity need to be a priority. And that's why it should be a standalone department. We've always had a standalone department. In my eyes, merging it is going backwards. You look at other cities and towns. I think the city of Lynn just got their first diversity, equity, inclusion office. They've been waiting forever. We've had a standalone office for the longest time. So we voted to keep it separate because it needs to be a priority. And someone at City Hall needs to own this to make sure that we are, the city hall is accountable for other deliverables. There's a lot in here. It's 36 pages. And there's some good stuff in here, but someone needs to make sure it's getting done. Someone needs to make sure there's follow-up. Someone needs to make sure that there is programming here on a regular basis and not just, 3 times a year. It needs to be a priority and not just to check the box where we have a policy or a roadmap. So that's why I was saying someone needs to own it. Yes, everybody needs to own it, but someone needs to be responsible for the document, making sure everything's getting done.
So I agree with you. As I understand it, the position was originally funded because of a lawsuit against the city for racism issues. I might be wrong on that. I was told that when I moved to Medford. And I do believe, based on what I've seen in Medford in the 18 years that I've lived here, that position has never had much authority or much weight in the city. So I think promoting that person to a higher role in the city can only help, because it's
Mr.
obviously,
President,
I haven't
point
seen
of
much.
information
I
first.
certainly disagree with that, but Diane McLeod did yeoman's work on this when it came to diversity and disability issues, especially. I mean, she'd be in her office with blueprints on restaurants being made, and making sure that there were accessible pathways for individuals when it was a diversity and disability office. We've seen the focus of the office change. We've seen the office actually be proposed to be eliminated. And that was the priority that this council made, to keep the diversity office alive, because that office was going to be gone entirely. Entirely. It was just going to be the Office of Human Resources. There was not going to be an Office of Diversity and Inclusion anymore. It was going to be gone. And that was the stand this council took. We said, there's going to be a circumstance or a situation that comes up where the Director of Human Resources is sitting on an interview panel, say, and an individual that's interviewed feels as though there was some malfeasance, or weren't given a fair shake, their civil rights were violated, whatever it was. Who do they go to? The human resource officer that just sat on the panel but just told them they don't get the job? That was the conflict that we were talking about. That was the first sign that we really saw that, you know, we need to make a commitment to this. We can talk all we want to talk, but at the end of the day, where do we put the money? We put the money into the diversity office. We made it a council priority to keep that diversity office alive. And that's what happened. I mean, I think when we look at, you know, the steps the administration's taken, we're seeing a lot of press releases. We're seeing a lot of press releases. We're seeing a lot of Facebook posts, but we're seeing a lack of communication. We're seeing a lack of communication. We have a communications director that does a great job. She does a great job. She puts a great press. But we need to get in the same room and sit down and talk about some of these things. And it's not just related to issues of race and equity. It's related to fiscal responsibility. It's related to service delivery. There's a real breakdown in communication. You know, my father was a great athlete. He was the athletic director over at the city of Somerville for, I can't tell you, 25 years. He always talked about athletes, and he said that an athlete's number one ability is their availability. If they're not available, they can't play, right? If the mayor's not available to take these conversations with us and to come to our meetings when we ask her to be here to address issues of inequity, then how are we supposed to move forward? How are we supposed to move forward? We can all stand behind the rail and we can bang the table and we can give the good speeches and we can talk for 20 and 30 and 40 minutes at a time. Listen, everybody behind this rail can talk, and we can talk the dog off a meat wagon, every single one of us. You've seen it before and you'll see it again, right? But at the end of the day, it's all smoke. It's all smoke. Unless, like Councilor Falco says, someone takes that document. That's the mayor's roadmap. That's what it says right on the top of it. That's who's in charge of that document. The mayor's in charge of that document. That's the mayor's roadmap. The mayor's roadmap, not the council's, not Neil Osborne's, not anybody else's. That's the mayor's roadmap, and that's who should be owning this.
Mr. President?
Council Bears.
Thank
In
you,
terms
Mr.
of the
President.
implementation of public policy, implementation of public policy.
Thank you, Mr. President. My intention with this resolution certainly wasn't to have this argument again. But, you know, I think regardless, you know, I do want to amend this resolution to ask when if it already has been, or when will the diversity director position be posted? Because I do believe we can have an argument, one office, two offices. We all agree 2 positions. We certainly agree with that. A full-time diversity position and the HR position. So then where we ended up was 2 offices and 2 positions. And you know, that's fine because we have the 2 positions, right? So it wasn't to relitigate that specific question, but I haven't seen whether that has been posted. So my amendment is just to request to ask if it has been posted or when it will be posted for the diversity position. I haven't seen it in the list of open city jobs. So that means we still have, well, I guess now we have nobody doing that job, right? Because for a while it was, right. And well, I you know, at least since the last budget was passed, because you know, there was a budget that eliminated the position, which I voted against. There's a budget that restored the position, which I voted for. But in any case, I would like to just know that answer to that question. And I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I think we should look forward at what we can do, not what has happened necessarily in the past few months with city budget discussions.
Julianne Otis, 35 Brookings. I have a long history of being in like evangelical for justice and rights, veterans' rights, disabled people's rights, voting rights, LGBTQ, like you name it, I've marched for it. And what I have discovered in my work in anti-racism in the last few years is that if I can only invite somebody in as far as I've already gone. So I appreciate that the role and the job and the admirable work of this city council is to both provide support for and ask questions of and put the spurs to this administration. And I'd like to invite you in to come a little further in your own journey. I don't say this in a way that's naive. I say this in a way that I want to point to the efficacy of this kind of work, because we can talk about dialogue and talk about dialogue and talk about dialogue, but there's something really available that happens when you face your own history and you face your own cultural identity and you start having conversations about race in your own life with other people. That looks a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. You know, just because I've had some formal training, other people just start a conversation over the dinner table. But I would be remiss if I didn't recommend checking out Born on Third Base, Waking Up White, My Grandmother's Hands. Lastly, I just want to share that the turning point really happened for me when I was reading Born on Third Base, and I realized how many friends I'd been robbed of. I grew up in Nebraska, very segregated. We talk like we're not, but we are. And I get flashbacks around Medford. And Shavetta Brown taught me how to blow bubbles with bubble gum when I was 6 years old. I used to go to her house all the time. And around about second grade, third grade, suddenly it was like, oh, no, all the white kids go over to the other white kids' houses and all the black kids hang out at the other black kids' houses. There was never any like conversation about it, or this is what you do, or this is what you don't do. It's just social. It's just in the water. You know, it's like the fish in the water and they don't know what they're in. And I had this moment of realizing that like, we could have been friends. Like she was amazing. She was my best friend when I was 6. So everybody has their own moment and their own realization about like when it actually impacted their own lives. But until you go there, you can't invite somebody that deep into that dialogue yourself. So I appreciate that none of what I'm inviting you to is your job, but I'm inviting you in because it's a chance to have a deeper conversation such that you won't feel that this is a chore, that this actually would benefit you personally. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheila Aaron's. Sheila, name and address of the record, please. Hold on, Sheila, hold on one second. We have to unmute you. Sheila, you good? Mr. Clerk, can you unmute Sheila Aaron's? Sheila, name and address of the record, please. Sheila, you have to unmute yourself on your side. There you go.
Got it? Sorry about that. So 19 Sagamore Park. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I'm not really sure that advertising this art installation would have really changed anything with the vandalism. I truly believe in my heart that it still would have been vandalized. And I find it very hard to believe that the person that tore, or folks that tore this down, didn't live in the neighborhood, because as Julianne mentioned, 45 minutes later after she put it up, they came with box cutters and cut it down. So to me, I doubt they lived in Somerville or any other, adjoining community where they knew 45 minutes later that this was put up. So I think it's someone who lives very close to the park. I think it would be, I think going to conversations about racism You're usually speaking to the choir. Having been part of Conversation Project, it's usually the people that are the choir that go to these events and these conversations. I would love to see the young person who got identified to do this, that they would sit down with, you know, a half a dozen people of color, both men and women, or boys and girls, and have a dialogue with them about what their experiences are and how this sort of thing hurts them, or racist things being said to them, or just general being ignored, whatever is happening that has racist implications, because I don't think anything is going to change in our world, no matter what it is, unless people can have empathy for what that other person is experiencing. And that's what I think would be one of the great things that could come out of this. And obviously that somehow this kid or kids should pay for the damage that was done. And maybe it could go into some sort of fund, since Julianne was already paid the second time through the crowdsourcing, into some sort of fund that would, I don't know. But anyway, that maybe it could be used for, you know, a positive good. So those are just my thoughts about it. It's just obviously incredibly upsetting. And I lived on Monument Street, and people that know that neighborhood know it's diverse, used to be much more diverse than it is now. And one of my neighbors was with her husband crossing High Street in West Medford Square, and someone yelled a racial epithet at them. So I think it happens every day that we're not aware of it, and there is issues in this community. I'm sure, I know it happens everywhere, but I know that there's issues in this community because I heard it from one of my neighbors. So anyway, that's all I have to say. It's, you know, very disturbing. You know, there was just a big article about something at UMass Amherst, and it just, every day you hear something happening that is really, really disturbing in this country. So, all right, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Kit Collins, name and address of the record, please. Kit Collins, name and address of the record, please.
Thank you. Yeah, 11 Strathmore Road, number 2. My name is Kit Collins. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So really grateful that this resolution has been brought up tonight. Thank you for creating the opportunity for residents and councilors to speak about it. I just wanted to echo some of what's already been said before by councilors and other community members, and say that I really feel strongly that, you know, conversations are so important. I think that we need really discrete programming and funding and concrete channels to continue conversations about race and racism in Medford, and white privilege and white supremacy in Medford, and how to systemically unweave those realities. And I think that also, you know, it's so important that we not allow these conversations to get derailed from the focus on addressing structural inequity as it exists in Medford, as it does, you know, in almost every community across the nation. And I think that we've had some really great outlines of things that we can do to begin to address those and to think in those directions. And some of that thought is already underway, which, you know, is good, is encouraging. It might be overdue, but it's good. And, you know, I think that to say, you know, we've reached the end of our road here because, you know, the buck has stopped somewhere else, you know, just means that we're wasting time. I think that, like, we must be reflecting on the spaces that we occupy, especially for people who already hold power in city government, for those who have plenty of spaces in the city where they already feel comfortable talking about race, which certainly doesn't apply to everybody and doesn't affect people of every race equally. You know, I think that we have to do the work of looking inward and saying, if there does seem to be a communication breakdown, if we feel like we're not hearing these stories let's first look at the environment that we're perpetuating and creating. What can we be doing so that we can be receiving this communication? Is there things that we could do to make these spaces ones in which everybody can feel comfortable talking about these uncomfortable and sometimes outright dangerous topics? You know, I think that there's a role for the city council to have in being a really full-throated proponent of anti-racism measures. And I think, you know, I think lots of constituents would be really eager to see the city council take on a more bullish approach to advocating for anti-racist dialogue, as well as, you know, as councilors have said, policies that address structural inequities. So just to sum up, you know, I agree. We all have the responsibility to start these conversations. And I think that, you know, we need to be creating spaces where people feel everybody can feel comfortable talking about these issues. And if we're observing the fact that we don't yet have perfect communication about these issues, I think that we also have to consider that the fact of white supremacy and racial divide is a reason for that. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Reverend Wendy Miller. Good evening, Reverend Wendy. Name and address to the record, please. Hold on, Wendy, 1 second. Thank you. Reverend.
Thank you. Wendy Miller Olapade, 105 Brooks Street in Medford. Thank you for a moment. I just want to take one moment to say that I am in strong support of not only inviting the administration to report on progress and action and you know, improve communication, but really, you know, all that has already been said, and that includes a personal plea to each and every one of the members of City Council and the school committee and our administrative organization to do their own work. I think you've been invited into that. There are models. We don't have to recreate the wheel, as has already been observed. There are models that we can lean into. There are community organizations, including Medford Health Matters, that is seeking to both do their own work to understand how the structure, even our bylaws, reflect the kind of white supremacy that we're talking about here, as are all of our organizations in the city. So doing our own work individually, organizationally, whether it is in our city government or in nonprofits or in corporate America, the work is being done and the models are already out there. So all we need to do, my friends, is resource it. We need to come up with some money to make these things happen. I have a model and ready and willing to lead our community through from one perspective. All I need is about $25,000 for the next couple of years. That's the kind of resource we're talking about in order to get the kind of leadership that others have already observed is needed to facilitate the kind of dialogue across difference that will allow us to create a community where there is no longer hierarchy of human value being celebrated, that we will celebrate all human beings, whether they identify as a particular race, whether they identify as a particular religion or as a particular gender. We've seen this getting played out. You know, now we have a sign in Medford Square that's anti-immigrant. It is so prevalent in our city. We all have to take responsibility for fixing this and being a part of shifting the transforming how we express community, how we care for each other, and how we operate as a city. So thank you for your attention. I'm signed on to help in whatever ways that I can. Thanks.
Thank you, Reverend Wendy. Name and address to the record, please.
William Navarre, 108 Medford Street, number 1B. I just wanted to thank the city council for putting this forward and keeping up on this issue. It's a tough issue. Some days you put it on the city council agenda, and you get a lot of people very angry at you. So that's one difficulty you have. And then other times you do this and you feel like you're just banging your head against the wall. You're not making any progress. It kind of drags on, and you got to just keep up on it. It's very easy for somebody to just, pass some resolution and then forget about it. So it's really tough to remember to keep coming back to it, put up with people who are very angry about that, and it just causes a lot of trouble. And so I really thank you guys for keeping up on this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. So on the motion by Councilor Bears, as amended by Councilor Bears, seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor? Councilor Bears has requested a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk, can you read that back? One second. If I understood it, Councilor Bears has requested. Okay, Mr. Clerk, read it here.
You want the full resolution plus the amendment, correct? Correct. Okay. Be it resolved by the Medford City Council that the city administration report to the council on anti-racism efforts and trainings conducted under the mayor's social justice roadmap. Be it further resolved that the city administration provide an update on future plans for funding anti-racism programs and public programming to involve all Medford residents in dismantling systems and structures that perpetuate white supremacy and racial inequity. Council Bears offered an amendment requesting if and when will the diversity director position be posted.
Yeah, correct, Councilor Bears?
100% correct. Thank you for your accuracy, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Council Marks. Yes. Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli is absent. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 6 in affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. 21558, offered by Councilor Falco. Be it resolved that the city administration provide Medford City Council with an update as to the future of the city-owned property at 15 Maple Park Avenue. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. This here is the property at 15 Maple Park Ave is the former Bridgewell building and the Hegner Center going back years ago. It's city owns the property. The property, I'll say, hasn't really been maintained that well. During the summer, the weeds are probably 5-6 feet tall. It looks from the outside like it's in some sort of maybe disrepair. I have not been inside. I believe that police may be using it for training occasionally. And I know that there's been vehicles parked inside. I think they're maybe former police vehicles. But it's in a neighborhood, and the city needs to keep up the property. I've also am hearing from residents that there's rodents around the area as well, and this here needs to be addressed. And the city really hasn't made a statement, about what's going to happen with this property. What's the future of this property? It's just stood vacant for a number of years now, and it really needs to be addressed. So I'm bringing the resolution forward to just get an update from the administration as to what the plans are for the property and to also just make sure that it's maintained on a regular basis. Like I said, it's in a neighborhood. Neighbors should not have to look at something that is overgrown every few weeks. It should be on a maintenance schedule. In a previous resolution I had regarding this, I asked for the maintenance schedule with regard to this property. I have not received one yet. I'm hoping that I'll receive one at some point. But I just want to, tonight, this resolution is just basically to find out what are the plans for this building. And at one point in time, I think it was maybe being considered as an art center, but I'm not sure if any progress has been made in that area. I know
Thank
that there is one resident, I believe, that wants to speak on this tonight, but thank you.
Good evening, Cindy. Name and address for the record, please.
Hello there, Rick. Cindy Watson, 65 Valley Street. John, you were being more than polite in bringing this up, but to say that it is in somewhat of disrepair is, it couldn't be further from the truth. They're doing a Addams Family rerun. They should have filmed it here. Okay, it is atrocious. Several years ago, Mark Rumley, of his own volition, former city solicitor, came and spoke for about an hour to the folks at Maple Park. I live at Maple Park. There are 44 unit owners in there. We all have a beneficial interest in what goes on in the city. 22 face the Fellsway, 22 face Boston, which overlooks this property, which is horrific. One of the women who just died was a catalyst in trying to get that converted into an art center. I can tell you that Michael Marks spent months and months and months trying to pursue that as an opportunity to house artisans within Medford. It was no longer a viable option. Again, it's a disgrace. I don't want to minimize the former gentleman that came forward to say that granite versus concrete, it's terrible for the property values. People are paying $500,000 now to be in Maple Park. We overlooked that. I have to see it every single day. It's a little bit sort of it hits home to me because I spent my career providing services at various facilities in Massachusetts, as well as going across the country. We were the counterpart of JACO, which evaluates hospital administrations to make sure facilities that served people with disabilities were in compliance. I can tell you right now, if a CARF survey came out, that place would be shut down. And it's a terrible, terrible blemish on the city that that building continues to be in the shape that is in. I don't know why the Bridgewell sign is still up. The roof looks like it's ready to collapse any minute. There's rodents coming in and out. The weeds are as tall as I am. You can't even see the building. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Oftentimes, I'll sit there and kids will jump over the fence, try to go into the unmarked police cars to break in. And not only that, they go in and try to get into the building. So this has been going on far, far too long. So when is the city going to do something about the state of affairs in this building?
So that is a great question, and that's part of the purpose of this resolution, to find out what are the plans? Are there any plans? Like you said earlier, Councilor Marks, had led the effort for years on an art studio there, and but we haven't really received an update in quite some time. So really, the purpose of the resolution is to receive an update to find out what the plans are, because we haven't received any update in quite some time.
It's been going on for years. I guess the
agree.
best solution right now, Halloween's coming around, maybe we could charge admission for people to come and look at a haunted house. It's bad. It's beyond bad.
Mr. President?
Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank Cindy Watson for coming up. She's been a long time resident of this community and an advocate on a lot of issues, including Chevalier Auditorium. And I thank you for the Friends of Chevalier and all you've done, your efforts, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. President, was back probably now close to 3 years ago that I was approached by a number of artists in the community. They knew back some 10, 12 years ago, I sat on the Vision Committee to make the Swan School an art center. And as you probably remember, Cindy, back then, it lost the vote of this council by 1 vote. We almost had an art center coupled with local public access at the Swan School. And that was very traumatic for many of the artists that put countless hours and time into that, making that building an art center, which we all know is needed. So about 3 years ago, I was approached by some of the artists. I formed a group, Mr. President. We actually met on a rather monthly, every couple of months basis at Maple Park condominiums. It was comprised of a number of artists in the community. We did look at the old Hegner Center as a potential art center. We had architects come in to look at the building and what the cost would be to refurbish that into an art center. We were talking about having public art classes at no cost for Medford residents, small art studios there, and have a full-fledged art center. And over the past 3 years, Mayor Burke was, I'd say, on board and committed to leaving that building open for us. Mayor Lungo Kern was committed to leaving that building open to us. Over the years, we've asked for it to be trimmed, which they have. I know personally, I dealt with Paul Moki. We had the roof shored up because it was raining inside the building, to be quite honest with you. And we were concerned that we would get a building for the art center that was in such deplorable condition that it was going to be cost prohibitive for the artist. So we asked that the roof be shored up. And over time, Mr. President, I think there's been countless resolutions by each member of this council to make sure that that building is at least kept up. There is a group that uses that building. We've all got calls regarding the organization, what is it? Middlesex? NEMLAC, that uses that building. The city allows them to use the building for training purposes. So it's police officers from all these surrounding communities go in there and use that building for training services. Because a number of residents in your building saw police going in there all the time and thought something was happening. But they're using it for training purpose. But needless to say, to make this story short, because it's getting late, the group that I formed back some couple of years ago, we now have the possibility of another building in the community that may be rent-free, more parking, larger space, and a real suit for the art community, for an art center. And that's been our focus for the last probably close to a year, and it's been taken away from the Hegner Center. So it's fair to say that whatever's being done in that building right now is not involved with looking at a new art center for the time being. And I would agree that that building, something needs to happen, Mr. President. We saved the building. If members of this council remember, the Mayor Burke tried to sell that building off.
It was my motion that they would try to sell it for $1.
Yeah, they were trying to get
It was
rid
my
of that
motion to
building,
stop
Mr.
it.
President. This council saved the building. The deeds at the Registry of Deeds stated if there was no longer being used for that purpose of providing social services for the impaired, Mr. President, that it would revert back to the city. It was a little-known document. The building ended up being reverted back to us. It's worth $600,000 or $700,000, I believe the assessed value is. And indeed, it's a building that we should take care of, even if we don't have plans for it. As Cindy stated, it's in a neighborhood. It's across from the condominiums over there that keep excellent care of their property and their property values. And I would go along with Councilor Falco that we ask immediately that whatever roof repairs, temporary roof repairs need to be done, and work around the building be done immediately in the interest of public safety. Thank you, Mr. President.
So on the motion by Council, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cassidy, name and address for the record, please.
Hello,
Name and address for the record, please.
hello.
Hello?
Had my hand up for about 5-10 minutes. I was gonna say something about this last resolution about the race.
Name and address, we're talking about the old Hegner Center, Andrew.
Right, so I simply wanted to say before, I believe there's good and bad in every race, creed, and religion, and I believe Martin Luther King had the right idea. We should judge man or woman by their character. Now, onto the subject at hand. Councilor Marks is right on, as usual. I remember when the previous mayor was gonna sell it for a song, a cheap song at that. And I believe Councilor Marks and Caviola was saving it for the people. And Councilor Marks is always also right about when the 3-3 vote for the Swan School was the deciding dagger in the table was by Councilor Muccini Burke at that time. And that's why we lost the vote 4-3 to get the Swan School for the TV3 and Method Arts and Artists and the Method Arts Council. Councilor Marks has been right on for over 2 decades. Anyways, maybe this opportunity for the artists might come somewhere else, it seems to me in my gut feeling. So maybe it is cost prohibitive, and maybe you people should just sell it, our city building, to a developer, depending on the square footage, and just demolish it and make more, hopefully, affordable housing. I have no further comments.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. So on the motion by Councilor Falco, seconded by Councilor Marks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank
Cindy.
you.
for
Thank you,
coming up.
Michael.
Motion
Good
to
job
take
bringing
papers in the hands of the clerk. Offered by by Councilor Bears, seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor? Motion passes. 21562, offered by Vice President Knight. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council extended sincere happy birthday wishes to City Messenger Larry Lepori on the celebration of his 57th birthday. 75th. Congratulations, Larry. So on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by
We're not going
Councilor
to talk
Falco.
about all the service to the community, the housing authority, the city council, the United States of America is a veteran, 75 years in this wonderful city, a West Medford guy over here. Come on. We got to give him a little bit of kudos on his birthday,
Yes.
Mr.
The
President.
King of Paris Street.
Thank you, Larry, for your
Happy
service. to the
birthday, brother.
community. Now on the motion by
Happy birthday, Larry.
Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. 21563, offered by Vice President Knight. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council thank board members General Richard Lasky and Judith Murray for their service as members of the Board of Registrar of Voters and Elections in the city of Medford. And be it further resolved that the Medford City Council present these individuals each with a council citation recognizing their service to the residents of the city of Medford. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Both Ms. General Lasky and Ms. Murray have served on the Board of Voter Registrars for an extended period of time, as long as I can remember. They've both served this city diligently. They've done a great job working with our elections staff to ensure that our elections roll out smoothly, to ensure that our elections policies are fair and equitable, and to be sure that we get the job done when it comes down to one of the most important functions of city government, which is conducting municipal and state elections. So both members of the board have sought retirement after this recent primary election. And I think that it's only warranted working with the community. So I bring forward this resolution, Mr. President, congratulating them for their service and dedication to the community, and ask that my council colleagues support the resolve.
Thank you. Councilor Falco.
And I thank Council Knight for bringing this forward and share his sentiments as well. I just want to congratulate and thank General Lasky and Judith Murray for their many years of service to our community and wish them well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Vice President Knight for putting this on. In all the years that I've had in this community, Mr. President, you never heard anyone once say that, oh, the elections are not fair, or the elections are this, or the elections are that. General Lasky, Judith Murray have run the elections in this community, along with the staff, Mr. President, in a way that gives us the trust and confidence that we're running elections, Mr. President, in the manner that they should be. And I just want to thank them both for their many, many years of service. It's a thankless job, Mr. President, especially on election day, as the clerk can attest to, Mr. President. And I want to thank them both for their many years of dedicated service.
Thank you. So on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Marks. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. President, point of personal privilege, if I may.
Yes, Councilor Bears.
I'm sorry to do this to everyone at the end of the meeting, but I'm a little sorry. I just want to make a quick statement, if you'll indulge me. This is just on reference to something I said last week. The word totalitarianism was brought up to describe our form of government. And I made a comment that this is democracy. And I just would like to clarify, because there's been some commentary and speculation about what I was saying, that I was talking about the election. I was talking about who I'm supporting in the local election. And I just want to make a quick point. It actually relates exactly to what General Lasky and Judy Murray have been doing for several decades in this community, which is about democracy. And the fact that we're blessed in our country and in our city to have a government of, for, and by the people, that we elect our leaders by majority vote. And if we like them, we can keep them. And if we don't, we can elect somebody else. We've seen a lot of people on television and online making statements and lying to undermine our democratic process. And, you know, occasionally people bring those lies into this room. They throw around words like totalitarianism to describe our democratic process, and it more than frustrates me. I don't know what that beeping is, but.
Destroyers over the submarine.
Well, I'm gonna wait, or if you take it out of the room, thank you.
Does he want you to answer for him?
Press stop. Is there a button on it?
I think somebody realized that he or she forgot a phone and it's pinging the phone. Somebody's pinging their phone because they realize they've left it somewhere.
Okay, he knows how to do it. He's a whippersnapper.
Put it in the ice box, please.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. Sorry.
My
You don't have to
conclusion
start
to-
over. You don't have to.
No, I
start
won't.
over.
I won't start over. But I'll just continue to say that it more than frustrates me when people come in here and throw around words like that when we have a democratic system of government. Everyone behind this rail, our school committee and the mayor was elected democratically by the people. None of us are perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And I think I know better than most that I'm not always going to get my way. Nobody's always going to get their way. And that's what democracy is about. It's a blessing and a gift handed down to us by the people who came before us, that many people have fought for, died for on battlefields and in streets across this country. It's our job to preserve that, to improve that, and not to decry and undermine that. So when I said last week that this is not totalitarianism and it's an election season, I wasn't speaking in a small and parochial way. I was speaking in a way that's bigger than every one of us and any one of us. We are blessed that every 2 years, at every level of government, we get a peaceful revolution. We get to decide our future, and we get to preserve, protect, and improve democracy. That's what we all are here to do. That's what I will continue to do as long as the people of Medford allow me to do it. And I just wanted to make that clear to folks online who thought I was making a snide comment when I was actually talking about something much more important than
Thank
that. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
If I may quickly,
Council Pell.
Mr. Clerk, I just have a question. Mr. President, I have a question for the clerk. So with General Lasky and Judith moving on, what are the plans or how does that work with regard to their replacements?
We've consulted with the mayor and she's looking at possibilities now for new appointments.
And those will have to be, those people have to be sworn in before the next,
Most people, they will have to come before the council for confirmation because they'll be new appointments.
correct, before the election.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Records. Tabled records of the August 17th, 2021 meeting were passed to Councilor Marks. Councilor Marks, how did you find those records?
Mr. President, I read the records, find them to be order and move approval.
On the motion.
Second.
On the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes. The records of the meeting September 21st will pass to Councilor Scarpelli. Councilor Scarpelli is not here, and they will be tabled.
Second.
On the motion by Councilor Bears, second by Councilor Falco. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion passes.
Motion
To adjourn by Councilor Bears, second by Councilor Morel. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, meeting adjourned.